Hey everybody, sorry it has been so long. I hope y'all liked the little video of Nate I put up. Really wish I had one of him awake, but at that very second when I had my flip camera there and there was no one around, I just want to take what video I could of him because we don't have any video of him other than what we have on the cell phone, and we don't have a way to transfer that to the computer. But anywho, Nate's doing really well. We're anticipating that he will come home early next week. It's kind of hard to get super excited about that just because we thought he would be home last Monday and we had complications and he wasn't. So it's difficult to get really excited until we really know he's coming home. But it is definitely getting closer, and problems are getting to be less and less. So it should hopefully not be too much longer. He is 6 weeks old last Thursday. He has grown so much, and it really sucks that the first at least 7 weeks of his life were spent in a hospital. But, it is what it is, and we don't dwell on, what we wanted or what could have been or how it would have been different. We just don't worry too much about that. It is what it is. And he's an amazing little boy, and we're still very blessed to have him. I know I'm not going to be able to touch on every single thing that's happened over the last 6 weeks because this video would be like a 12-parter. So I'm just going to kind of touch on basically what's happened. So, as I said in the labor and delivery story, he was born with the small chin, the recessed chin. He is actually grown out a little bit from that, which has opened his airway up and made so many less problems in that area. He's off oxygen. I don't know what I told you guys, to be honest with you. He's off oxygen completely. And his breathing, for the most part, is really good. He can sleep on his back. He can sleep on his side. He can sleep on his stomach, which we didn't think he'd ever be able to sleep on his side for a while. So the fact that it's, 1.5 months later and he's doing that, it's really amazing. And it really shows us that, there's different things they can do for a jaw when it's, recessed. Sometimes it requires surgery, which you break the jaw bones and have to put these things in it. He's not going to need anything like that, thank God. So, it definitely appears to be fixing itself. A lot of times with kids with a recessed jaw, it will grow out in the first year to catch up with everything else and kind of stop all the problems that are associated with it. We are still going to try to get him to come home on a monitor. From what we understand, it's something that will strap around his belly. Not so much for when he's, up and about or whatever, but, like when he naps or is sleeping or is in the car when I'm driving and not with anyone else. It's something I can put on him just to be, I really think it's more for me because he's not had any problems at all in like 5 weeks, airways wise. He was still on oxygen for a little bit after that, but he's doing really well. So it's just more of, I think, a peace of mind for me. So I'm really going to fight to try to get that, because the doctor said the other day he didn't think he'd need to go home with that, but I really want him to. So let's see what else. So because of the small jaw, he really had a hard time. I'm not sure what I really told you. We tried breastfeeding, totally did not work. And I only tried it twice. And not that, I think that's, how long you try and give up. But what happened is I had requested some information, and also the hospital, people that deal specifically with cleft palates and things like that, they dropped off some information as well. And either in the information they gave me or the information I requested from the Cleft Palate Association, it said that breastfeeding a cleft palate baby is virtually impossible. So I just didn't want to push it, and I didn't want to stress him out anymore. I didn't, it's just, feeding was such a stressful time for him anyway that I just didn't want to push it. So maybe when he gets home, we'll try it. I don't know, because I don't like to just take one thing that I read one place and run with it. But I just don't think there's a point at this point in the hospital to try to stress him out. Because what was happening is they were feeding him, and again, I can't remember if I told you guys, with what's called a Haberman bottle. It's made by Medela, and it's specifically for kids with cleft palates and cleft lips. And it looks like a regular bottle. It's tube. Almost not really like a hospital bottle, I would say. It's a tube, and it's got like a elongated nipple on the top that's plastic. And the whole point is they don't have to suck as hard because they can't form the suction. But you can squeeze it. So you kind of squirt the milk into their mouth. And it comes out at different flow rates depending on how you turn it. He was doing okay with that. He was taking, I'll tell you, it's such a nightmare sometimes to remember everything, because the days are so long and they all run together. But at one point, I don't know if they were ever doing like bottle feeds every feed, because he was being gavaged, which means there was a tube that ran from his nose down to his stomach, or through his mouth down to his stomach, depending on what was going on. They basically poured, liquid into it, and it drained into his stomach. Poured the milk into it, and drained into his stomach. But he was doing, at the most recent part, he was feeding 3 times a day. I think he was doing more than that at one point. I almost think he was trying I can't remember. But anyhow, so they were trying 3 times a day to get him to take, what he was supposed to be taking by that special bottle. He was doing really well with it at one point, and for the most part would do half to all of his feeds 3 times a day. And then all of a sudden it just dropped off, and he would take like just give an example, he was like at, let's say, 75 cc's at one point, and he was taking like 5 cc's of those by bottle. The rest had to be gavage and poured down the tube. So we got to a point where we knew, it was not getting better, it was getting worse. So I started looking into feeding tubes, and I did a little bit online, and then I talked to the nurses there, and they said, it's funny you should say that. We were just talking about that, because pretty much all of his oxygen issues had been resolved, which was the large reason why he was in the NICU to begin with. And I didn't want him to just sit there for the nipple issues, because, again, some of the stuff that I read said some babies with cleft palates will never, ever take a nipple. They will go straight from, like, gavage feeding or tube feeding to a sippy cup. So, with that being said, I didn't want him to just sit in the hospital for 6 months, simply because the only reason is because he would not take food out of a bottle. So, we made the decision to go ahead with a feeding tube, which is not an easy decision to make, because it's surgery. It's, supposedly, a not very complicated surgery, but I'll talk to you about that in just a second. But it was a difficult decision to make, but, at the end of the day, we want him home. We want him to have a normal life, and, it's not a forever thing. It's just a temporary thing. And overall, he'll probably never remember it, and it doesn't, it doesn't really make him that much different. And so we decided to go ahead with it. We were pretty much told the hospital that we were at did not do them, that we had to go somewhere else. So they ended up transferring him about an hour and a half away. We went up there and stayed at a Ronald McDonald House, which is absolutely wonderful. If you guys ever go to McDonald's, donate to Ronald McDonald, because it's absolutely wonderful. We were able to stay up there for $15 a night. Everything was included, food, your room, everything. And they were just absolutely wonderful to us. And there's so many parents up there with babies in the NICU, so much worse off than Nate. And it's such a wonderful thing. I mean, I almost felt guilty staying there, because these parents that I was staying with, like, their babies had, the one girl, her baby was born the same day as Nate. She had to have heart surgery. Other babies had to be on a machine that, like, took their blood out of their body, oxygenated it, and put it back in. I mean, just serious things. So, and, you can't worry about money at times like that. So it's a wonderful program. But anyhow, so we went up there. We had, Nate had the surgery done, which we had to fight, because we were supposed to, from our understanding, we were supposed to go up there for like 2 days. It would be done, and then he'd recover up there and then come home. And we got up there. Surgery wasn't even scheduled for forever. It took a week and a half just to get the surgery. I mean, it was an absolute nightmare. But he finally got the surgery, and then, which they put like it's called a Mickey button. It's just a little tube that goes in his stomach. It's got a little button on the outside that's got a little closure. You open it up, you attach a hose, and you feed him that way. It's a fairly simple procedure. So they wanted him in the hospital for like 5 days after that, so we expected he'd be home this past Monday. But he developed an infection, of course, and the button leaked a little bit. Basically there's a hole in your stomach, and the tube goes down through, and the liquid was coming out. So, like I said, and the thing is, and we were talking to one of the girls at the Ronald McDonald House about this too, they come to you and they tell you this never happens, almost never happens. And that's what happens to your baby. And it happened with hers, in different issues that she was having. It happened with ours. We were told the buttons very rarely ever leak because they're fitted properly and blah, blah, blah. And his leaked so much that, because they start the feeds off gradually. And so much that, at one point it soaked the blanket he was in. It soaked the outfit he was in. Oh, it was just a nightmare. I'm going to go ahead and stop this and do a part 2 just so I don't go over too much, okay? I'll be right back.